reminder, if there are any remaining 5th and 6th graders who have been able
רצוצים חופשיים וכל מותר תנתקו הלא פרוס לרעב לחמך ועניים מרודים תביא בית כי תראה ערום וכיסיתו ומבשרך לא תתעלם אז יבקע כשחר אורך ורחתך מהרה תצמח והלך לפניך צדקך כבוד אדוני יעשך ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם צור כל העולמים צדיק בכל הדורות האל הנאמן אומר ועושה מדבר ומקיים שכל דבריו אמת וצדק על
Now I'd like to call to the bima some more of our Circle of Honor members, Bob and Carol Rawson. Please be seated.
On this Yom Kippur Day in ancient times, thousands of worshipers thronged Jerusalem and entered the Temple Mount through gates that featured 3 arches on the right and 2 on the left. They would proceed through the gate on the right, walk counterclockwise around the mountain, and exit through the gate on the left. But there was an exception. Those who were in mourning entered through the left gate, turned clockwise, and eventually exited through the right gate. Thus, those negotiating the normal route could identify those who had suffered a loss and speak words of comfort to those walking against the flow of traffic. Worshippers had to be alert to avoid collisions with those coming toward them while traversing the temple's sacred precincts. Like those supplicants in the ancient temple, a Hudki dies. He is transported to his eternal home by a bearded man dressed in white by the name of Pip, who informs Rocky that all of his requests will be granted. Rocky cannot imagine how he has come to enjoy such a reward after leading such a dissolute life, but he figures that God knows best. When he wins every bet at the casino, the thrill of gambling vanishes. Money no longer has any meaning or purpose. He breaks the law, but since there is no chance of being apprehended, he finds no excitement. The most beautiful women, the grandest houses, every distraction is his for the asking, but he tires of them quickly. Since every whim is indulged, He eventually protests being so spoiled. He beseeches his angelic guide. If I gotta stay here another day, I'm gonna go nuts. I don't belong in heaven, see? I want to go to the other place. Pip retorts, heaven? Whatever gave you the idea you were in heaven, Rocky? This is the other place. What he thought was a place of infinite gratification turned out to be a place of infinite misery. And Rod Serling offers the final word. Rocky now has everything he wanted, and he's going to have to live with it for eternity. A philosophy professor asked his class, who is more satisfied? A man with 10 children or a man with $10 million? A man with 10 children, a student answered. Why? Asked the professor. The student said, because the man with 10 children doesn't want any more. So many are like Rocky, unaware that more and more is meaningless. These are the people Maimonides and Bachya attempted to awaken to God's presence. The psalmist wrote, Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid. I have set the Lord always before me. What a wonderful example for we who are alert to everything around us but God. The challenge in opening our eyes to God is not that he is so far from us, but that he is so near to us we don't see him. Here is a true story that I read, and I will quote. One day, a young tourist named Jeff was brought in to meet Rabbi Noah Weinberg at Esha Torah, a Jewish outreach center in Jerusalem. What are you doing? Rabbi Weinberg asked him. I'm working for my MBA at Harvard, and I'm an atheist. Fantastic. A real atheist. Whoever was able to convince an atheist like you to meet with a rabbi like me deserves a medal. No, Jeff said. He doesn't deserve anything. I'll tell you how I came. Jeff had been in Norway, visiting his Norwegian fiancée. He decided it was now or never. Either he was going to come to Israel, or he would never make it. So he headed for Jerusalem and the Western Wall. He figured he would stop by the wall to see some old stones. Yet upon his arrival, he was amazed. He felt something heavy. He was moved. Jeff stood before the wall and made up an atheist prayer. He looked at the stones and said, God, I don't believe in you. As far as I know, you don't exist. But I do feel something. So just in case you're really there, and I'm making a mistake, get me an introduction. Jeff finished his prayer, and one of the yeshiva students who happened to be at the wall saw Jeff and thought, perhaps he'd be interested in learning a little Torah. He tapped Jeff on the shoulder, startling him. I'm sorry, I just want to know if you'd like to learn about God. That question hit Jeff like a 2x4 between the eyes. He had just finished asking God for an introduction, and immediately someone was offering to introduce him to God. Jeff learned at Aish Torah for the next 6 weeks. He became a very serious student, went back to the States with a commitment to continue learning. A year later, Jeff came back to Israel and told Rabbi Weinberg the end of his story. During that previous summer, he had been meandering through the cobblestone alleyways of the old city when he saw a pretty, sweet, religious young woman. He said to himself, "Look at the charm of this Jewish woman. May the Almighty help me to meet someone like this." One Shabbat morning the next year, Jeff entered a synagogue in Boston for prayer services. Standing there was the same young woman he had seen in the old city. He made his way over to her and said, "Excuse me, but I believe I saw you last summer in Jerusalem." She answered, "You're right. I saw you too." They are now married. Jeff had awakened to the truth that God is always right here, waiting to be invited in. Let us wake up to our connection with God. Today of all days, we must be alert to one key realization. There is less and less time to forge that relationship. At this stage in my life, a year seems to be no longer than 2 or 3 months, while a month is like a week, and a week is like a day. No sooner do I awaken in the morning than nighttime has fallen. That the passage of time is accelerating may not be a law of physics, but it is an intuition we all share as we age. Days that once seemed to go on forever. Summer vacations that once stretched before us as endless now race by and leave us dazed. Where is the slow movement of time in which we luxuriated, when we were young? The time hurtles by, dragging us with it. The Chafetz Chaim likens the typical person in managing his life to a common experience in writing a postcard. Following the date and the salutation, we pen a few sentences. Before we know it, we realize we have no more room to say what we really wanted to say. We start to write in ever smaller script. We write in the edges. We even turn the card over and write a little more in front. And for the young people here, ask your parents what a postcard is. The Chafetz Chaim said, this is how man writes in his book of life. In the early years, we scribble away so much of our time in trivia and nonsense, in activities with no lasting meaning. Suddenly, with a shock, we awaken to the awful truth that life is a picture postcard with deceptively little time, and that we haven't even begun to do the job for which we were put here on earth. Our life is a harif ayin, like the blink of an eye. Do we sleepwalk during our time, oblivious to God? Do we confuse the ephemeral with the eternal? Do we heed Maimonides' instruction and awaken to what God can mean to us? I look daily at 3 Hebrew words in a framed piece in my study. Gam ze ya'avor. This too shall pass. as it does, and does so ever more quickly, may we be alert to our relationship, what our relationship with God must be, and awaken to the fact that the window of opportunity is closing quickly. March 4th, 1849, witnessed a unique day in American history. On that day, a Sunday, President James Polk's term of office expired. His successor, Zachary Taylor, refused to be sworn in on his Sabbath and announced he would take the oath of office at noon the next day, Monday. By law, when Polk left office and Taylor refused to be inaugurated, the presidency at noon on that Sunday fell to the President pro tem of the Senate, David Rice Atchison of Missouri. On Saturday evening, Atchison visited a number of inaugural celebrations in the Capitol, and upon returning home in the wee hours of Sunday morning, fell into a sound sleep. He slept throughout the day, on into the evening, and then for the entire night. He woke at noon on Monday, having slept through his entire administration as 12th President of the United States. So many slumber through life, unmindful of God's presence, and awaken only when it is too late. It is too late when we discover, like Rocky, that having all we ever craved leaves us empty. It is too late when we discover, like the vacationer, that our postcard is filled before we have written what we truly wanted to say. It is too late when we discover, like David Rice Atchison, that our term is over and we have slept through it. Our ancestors had to be watchful when walking through the gates and traversing the Temple Mount. May we be alert today to the need to invite God into our lives. And we know that now is the time to wake up, wake up.